Dystopian stories may be set in the future, but they reflect none other than the present. They capture our imagination of the future and our fear it extends. Black Mirror and Blade Runner are two prime examples of the genre. Even though both of them are set in dystopic universes, they depict two extremes, one of absolute order, the other of absolute chaos. To see how producers imagine these two extremes, what better way to start than by looking at the aesthetics of the architecture. First, let's look at Black Mirror. The imagination of a futuristic society is manifested first and foremost on building materials. The more advanced the civilization is, the larger the variety of building materials they have at their disposal. So using more artificial and fewer natural materials is a very rough guide to imagine how the future looks like. But from the beginning of the 20th century to the not too distant future in Black Mirror, not that many new materials were developed and applicable. So the architectural style in this series still hasn't shaken off the last great revolution in architecture, namely modernism at the beginning of the 20th century, which extends to the successive international style. Thanks to the rapid industrial developments after the Industrial Revolution, ways to mass-produce glass, steel, and reinforced concrete were invented, which had an immediate and immense impact on architectural styles. Throughout the series, we see dozens of designs inheriting the ideals of modernist architecture. Zero adornments, keeping the materials the way they look, aka truth to materials. The form follows function, which is why only rectangles are used from the interior compartmentalizing to the exterior, and you rarely see exotic forms. Grayscale colors dominate the palette, with white being the most widely used. The use of glass is ubiquitous, and if we are to point out one new element that wasn't used in real-life modernist architecture, it would be the Black Mirror itself, the screen. This is made obvious in 15 Million Merits. Not only are everybody's rooms tiled in monitors, but in the toilet, and even when you're on a stage looking at the audience, they are also shown on a screen. But the real question is, there are tons of architectural trends in the 20th century coming after modernism, most notably postmodernism, deconstructivism, and a lot of revivals in classical styles. While it's true that the high-risers in major cities are mainly of the international style, creative and innovative examples are still everywhere. So why did Black Mirror consistently and almost only employed one particular style in their sets? The reason I believe is the same as the criticisms people have against the international style in real life. Simply put, it's boring. Since this minimalistic style only considers functional practicalities, it lacks any decoration and in turn lacks character. Nothing is more boring than only white, black, and grey. And even though it's futuristic, it's cold and inhumane. These features aligns particularly well with what Black Mirror sought out to portray. These types of questions are being raised most apparently in 15 Million Merits and Nosedive. As technology plays an increasingly dominating role in our lives, how should we situate ourselves amidst the struggle? How should we stay authentic and not be assimilated by technology? What is humanity and what does it mean by being humane? The uniformity of the architectural style also matches one of the major themes in Black Mirror. You can tell by its name, the international style, how influential it has been. When cities look more and more alike over the globe, foreshadowing the deprivation of personality and character, what's left is a rigid and orderly dystopia. The overly simplistic fashion and the obsession with whiteness, where everything feels a little bit too neat and tidy. It's not hard to imagine a powerful authority behind coordinating, issuing complete control. Sometimes this authoritative order can be reassuring, like in the case of a hospital.
You must be Kelly.
I guess I must.
But sometimes it arouses concern or even terror, like the control of the video game company over the protagonist in playtest. The military's control over individual soldiers in Men Against Fire.
We can make that go away. This conversation goes away too. All of it. But you gotta say the word.
Matt's control over the copy of Greta in White Christmas.
Please. Give me something to do.
Ready to work?
Yes, please.
Or the government's supervision over the civilians using drone bees hinted and hated in the nation.
So fucking fancy looking, these companies. Billions on branding.
Well, they can afford it. The whole ADI project's pretty much bankrolled by the government. That's why so many people are paranoid about it.
The monotony of the international style, the order, the tidiness that feels forced, precisely embodies the themes of Black Mirror. Walking along the spectrum of dystopian universes, we arrive at the other extreme. Los Angeles in 2019. Colorful shops, diverse culture, eternal rain, and darkness define the city. If we say that the futuristic architectural elements in Black Mirror are glass and screens, then in Blade Runner that element is, without a doubt, neon lights. Just like digital screens, the mastery in mass production of a high-tech artificial product signifies a new era. So where does that dystopic feeling come from? First, we have to understand the background of Blade Runner. The movie focused on the protagonist Deckard and his pursuit of the replicants and pretty much omitted the background. But if we look at the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep that inspired this loose adaptation, we can figure out a thing or two. In the novel, Earth suffered a nuclear war. Pollution was severe, plants and animals went extinct in vast quantities. Many species were replaced by artificial robot animals. A lot of people moved to off-world colonies, and most of the people stayed on Earth were those who couldn't afford the migration. Los Angeles then became a big melting pot. The city itself is a mess. Although the police seem to be omnipresent, they seem to be unable to enforce the law, or at the very least, are indifferent. Deckard was pushed to come out of retirement to handle meagerly 4 replicants, and it wasn't like that Deckard had some special abilities or powers. Whenever Deckard killed a replicant, the captain of the police department would magically appear and applaud him. But here, literally after 1 minute when Deckard was attacked in the middle of the road, police officers were nowhere to be found, all of these accentuated by the neon-filled backdrop. The dystopia in Black Mirror is one of petrifying order and control, hence the formulaic architectural style. On the other hand, the dystopia in Blade Runner is one that's almost out of control and chaotic. The government exists in vain, so the appearance of the city is in everybody's hands. This is exactly reflected on the features of the neon lights. The language, font, color, and size of each neon signs are all decided by shop owners themselves. Shops define their own identities. A beautiful and lively night view doesn't need and also is exempt from coordination by an authority. The variety in neon signs is a manifestation of the role of the city as a cultural hub, a mixture of different ethnicities and languages. Compared to the formulaic and monotonous designs, neon represents the decentralization of power. And in Los Angeles, the decentralization was at its extreme, to the verge of being uncontrollable. At night, walking down the streets with dazzling lights, we can't help but imagine the crimes going down in that narrow alleyway. Travis puts it best.
All the animals come out at night. Whores, skunk pussies, buggers, queens, fairies, dopers, junkies. Someday a real rain will come and wash all this scum off the streets.
Neon signs also symbolize something not that remote from our real lives. Times Square, Shibuya, Hong Kong, the inspirations for cyberpunk, not coincidentally, embody an extreme form of consumerism. Neon signs and gigantic billboards appeal to patrons, and ironically, this becomes what possesses people. Without an effective government, people appears to be more free, celebrating individuality and character with neon lights. But on a deeper level, in a society where conscious replicants who are capable of feeling and falling in love are commoditized, are people enslaved by intense commercialism and consumerism, or controlled indirectly by big companies like Tyrell Corporation? These are legitimate problems we have in our real lives. Black Mirror and Blade Runner depicted 2 different futures, 2 polar dystopian universes, and hence giving us 2 totally different imageries. But what people living in those universes share is the misery of being possessed, be it technology, an authoritarian entity, unrestricted capitalism, or chaos and crime. This is probably what dystopia is all about, and if we learn something, that would be don't go over the extreme.